Hello, a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on this week's programme, a special report on Hezbollah's involvement in the Syrian civil conflict. We give you rare access to the Shiite Iran-backed fighters and their relatives. Calm returns after deadly protests in southern Iraq. The residents of Basra are calling for an end to corruption and lack of basic services. Also coming up, Paris Design Week showcases the work of Lebanese talents. We are joined in the studio by Carla Baz to talk about her creations, which promote the country's craftspeople. Now, since its start 7 years ago, Syria's civil conflict has drawn in multiple foreign powers, among them Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah forces, who have helped prop up the government of Bashar al-Assad. To date, the party's military army has been very tight-lipped about where, when and just how many of their fighters have died across the border. But our correspondent Leila Molana-Allen gained rare access to some of these Shiite militants and their relatives.
Abbas Tash lost her 24-year-old son in Aleppo in 2014. Abbas was a Hezbollah fighter sent there to fight in the Syrian civil war. His mother didn't even know he was in Syria. Hezbollah operates under such strict secrecy there that while the bodies of dead fighters return to enormous celebratory funerals, the details of their deaths are kept secret from outsiders.
He was 14 years old when he joined. We're very proud. He had a chance to go to Syria. God and the Prophet were with him, and he was martyred there. Thank God I have all the dignity and pride of that.
But fighters aren't necessarily unquestioning believers. Recruited mostly from the poor, predominantly Shia South, some locals maintain there's little choice but to join. Not because they're forced, but because there are few other good options. Fighters receive a regular salary, whether at home or abroad.
Of course, it's because of the unemployment here. We have a saying here in the south: if you have no prospects in life, you have either the army or Hezbollah.
Muhammad is 21. He's been on 2 missions into Syria and thinks he'll be sent again soon. We can't show his face, as he fears punishment for breaking Hezbollah's strict code of secrecy.
There's a lot of martyrs here. Most are close friends or friends of friends. Of course I'm sad because they're gone, for the distance between us. But in the end, I'm just like them. I'm in Hezbollah.
Hezbollah insists the threat from ISIS demands their ongoing presence in Syria. But some argue this is simply a pretext to keep control of the vital highway running through Syria to Hezbollah's sponsors in Tehran. Muhammad says he might have chosen a different life under other circumstances, but believes he's protecting his community.
We're just like other people. We love life. We love to learn, to be employed, to have families. It's not like we love war or we want to die. Maybe Hezbollah was the only door open to us. We're not going to Syria to defend Bashar al-Assad as a person. We're going there to protect ourselves and our families.
Hezbollah's leadership has made it clear they won't leave Syria until President Assad himself asks them to. As recently as August 2018, he requested they stay on indefinitely.
Staying with the war in Syria, the fate of one province hangs in the balance. That's northern Idlib, a final enclave controlled by rebels, which the United Nations has warned could become the worst humanitarian catastrophe of the 21st century. Meanwhile, Syrian government forces, rebels and rescue workers have been stepping up preparations for the final assault. Let's take a look at the challenges that the White Helmet volunteers face.
Bombs pound the southern sector of Idlib. As they explode, the White Helmets rush towards the wreckage. They're the only rescue forces still operating in this, the last rebel-held bastion in Syria, supported by the international community. Emerging from the rubble, they find members of this family dazed and confused. There's barely time to evacuate the area.
Quick, quick, they're coming back. Go and hide.
The bombing starts up again, sending people running for cover. The White Helmets are working at the front line of the Russian and Syrian air campaign. Last week, this volunteer aid worker was targeted. As he's thrown to the ground, a second bomb explodes just a few meters away. He begins to recite the Shahada, the final Islamic testimony. Some 3 million people live in the province of Idlib, rebels, jihadists and refugees from other regions. But now the exodus has started. 30,000 people have already left, and those who've stayed behind are living in a state of siege, according to this resident.
The people who are fleeing go north towards the Turkish border, but it's very hard to get out of here. We're being bombed continuously.
The UN has warned that Idlib could become the worst humanitarian crisis of the 21st century, even though the regime's full offensive on the province has not yet officially begun.
Turning our attention to the Iraqi city of Basra, which has been rocked by deadly protests over the past week. The residents of the oil-rich southern region have been taking to the streets to protest corruption and a lack of services, including contaminated water. Now, calm has returned to the city, but authorities do fear that violence could spread to the other cities and, of course, the capital, Baghdad, where there's already a political battle over who should be the country's next prime minister. Rujaba Abbas has the story.
Facing increasing pressure to step down, Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi landed in Basra on Monday, hoping the visit will help diffuse tensions after weeks of protest.
What happened in Basra is a political conflict between political blocs that have armed forces. Some of them have tried to set Basra on fire, but thank God they were prevented with the help of peaceful citizens.
Since early July, demonstrations have gained momentum throughout the south of the country. Protesters denounce unemployment, corruption, and a collapse of public services, just as Baghdad's oil revenues are hitting record highs. Anger was sparked after 30,000 people were sent to hospital after drinking polluted water distributed by the authorities. On Saturday, Basra's governor Assad al-Idani spoke out against the prime minister, a move that was hailed by his supporters.
Believe me, you are a hero. You really are. All of the people of Basra are with you.
On Sunday, Iraqi police distributed flowers to residents as peace was restored to the city. The powerful Iran-backed Shia movement Asaib al-Alaq also took part in the celebrations around Basra.
We have prepared a complete plan for the redeployment of troops who have arrived in Basra yesterday. And thank God, since then, stability and security have become apparent in the province of Basra.
Iraq relies on an estimated 70% of Basra's vast oil reserves for its economy. The cost of the war against the Islamic State group and diminished oil revenues have fueled a financial crisis. Nearly 4 months after national elections, Iraq remains without a new government, as no party has yet secured an outright majority.
Now, with the summer days drawing to a close, Paris is beginning to host a colourful array of events, among them Design Week. And this year, the Rising Talents Award is shining the spotlight on 7 Lebanese designers. One of those emerging talents is French-Lebanese designer Carla Baz, and she joins us here in the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Carla, when it comes to the world of design, you've worked with some of the biggest names, from Vivienne Westwood, a fashion house, to Zaha Hadid in the world of architecture. They're such different mediums. Why did you choose this particular path?
Well, I originally trained as a product designer. I studied at ECAL in Switzerland, so I have a master's in the product design for the luxury design industry. And when I graduated, I wanted to experiment with different fields. So I started off with fashion, but I was designing interiors for boutiques and visual merchandising, and moved on to Zaha Hadid, where I was working solely on product. So working on jewelry, shoes, furniture. And after a while, I felt like I needed to go back home and be rooted in Beirut and explore my own lines. So hence why I moved back.
And that's the big question. How have your Lebanese roots inspired your designs?
Spending 10 years abroad is a long time, especially for a country like Lebanon. So not just I left
because the country's gone through so many transitions.
Exactly. I left in 2005, came back in 2013. So sort of came back because it took me a while to fully move back in. So the things that I lacked, I needed to fill by reconnected with the people and the different trends, and also the different possibilities that were at my disposal. And design is a relatively nascent industry in Lebanon. So I fell in love with my country through craftsmanship, and I understood the fabric of it through the individual craftsmen that I met along my path and who sort of reconciled me with making the products, because so far I had only designed products and not really followed through with production.
Now, that's a big question. We are seeing some of your products here on the screen, Carla. There's certainly a luxurious element to them, but you work with craftsmen in Lebanon. Do you think that's why you're getting this kind of attention, bringing the Middle East and the West somehow together?
I think so. I think today there's somehow a more responsible and educated consumership. I think people don't just want to buy a nice product. They want to buy something that they believe in, something that's rooted in a story or a cause. And for me, working with Lebanese craftsmanship was a way to sort of loop in the whole loop, if I can say so, and to sort of root my studio in some sort of social responsibility, because even craftsmanship is sort of disappearing. So I felt that as a designer, it's almost our civic duty to revigorate this sector and to offer possibilities. And we have so much talent in Lebanon and the Middle East, but I can only speak for Lebanese talent, obviously, that I felt we needed to explore it and to optimize it or use it in a better and more efficient way.
So that's what we call responsible designing. I'm going to ask you a very brief and final question, if I can. Why do you think Lebanese designers across the globe are getting so much recognition?
I think we have such a textured history and identity, and we need a platform to share it. And also, it's true that Lebanon is a very small country, relatively speaking. But if you look at all this Lebanese diaspora, we're basically everywhere. So there's a Lebanese almost in every continent, I want to say.
Lebanese in each continent.
Yes.
Carla Baz, French Lebanese designer. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for us this week. Don't forget you can contact us by visiting our Facebook page. That's Middle East Matters France 24, or you can drop us a tweet. Thank you for watching.